morning, everyone. Ooh, it's loud. My name is Bethann Monzel, and I am from Zebra Technologies, and I am hoping to impart some wisdom on you today, where all of you are at with your skill development and your company. Hopefully that won't do that. Excellent. The slides are going to move. Perfect. So, first things, I want to know where all of you are at in your skills and your organization. So I want you to go into the app and go into today's session, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see Take Poll. So tap on that, and there's a question in there for you on where you're at with your skill development today. And we should see the responses on the screen. Excellent. Luckily, all of you know what skills are. So the first one, we're good. All right, we're thinking about skills. We're stuck, not sure how to execute, and some of you have a plan. Excellent. So I'm hoping that with some of the information I'm going to give you today, that I can help you get unstuck in any way, shape, or form. That is my goal. So this is all about you. What I'm going to do is walk you through what we did at Zebra from a strategy perspective and how we got to skills. So there'll be two parts, more or less. Oh, somebody had to put skills in there just to be funny. Thank you. Excellent. Oops. I knew this was good. Okay. So our strategy. So Zebra, well, actually, I don't know what you know about Zebra. Does anybody know what we are, who we are? So if you've ever received an Amazon package, shopped at Costco, Walmart, been to the hospital and had a wristband with a barcode, that's Zebra. So we track people and things. So when you know where your package is, when Amazon drops it off at your door and they take a picture, all of that technology comes from Zebra Technologies. So there is probably a zebra in everyone's life here, but you just didn't know it. We're actually even in the NFL, so I know you're going to want to ask me questions about that. All right, so the strategy that we have as a company is our corporate strategy was around growth, execution, and culture. And so what we knew when we were developing the employee learning strategy, we had to align with the corporate strategy. So we know that in order to attract and retain talent, that we had to have skill options for our employees as we were bringing them into the company. Now here's a piece of useless knowledge for you. But do you know that zebras are like snowflakes? Does everybody know that? I think that's so interesting. So every zebra is unique. All their stripes are different. So when you think about your employees, as we did with ours, we said different languages, different skills, different needs. They have different genders, races, you name it. Everyone was different and unique, just like an actual zebra. So we knew that whatever we designed had to be individualized to cater to that individual. The other thing that we did when we first started this process is we did an engagement survey. Do you do engagement surveys in your company? Well, we got some bad results on the career development side. And our employees were basically saying, you know what, Zebra, you're not really giving me anything to develop my career. My manager is not having conversations with me about my career. And so we knew that we had to answer to that as well. How could we give our employees more options to develop their skills? So when we designed the strategy, we looked at this as a response to that as an entire ecosystem. So it wasn't just let's bring in some learning content. It was how do we take all the different pieces that our employees need and put them together. So we looked at tools and resources, and we wanted them to be connected. We looked at how those tools and resources were going to develop skills for the individual. It had to be personalized. People had to learn when they wanted, where they wanted, what they wanted, because everyone is different. We wanted to also incorporate on-the-job training because people are already getting experiential training, but they're just not recognizing it. So how do we take things like mentoring, career shadowing, we have a buddy program, stretch assignments. How do we take all of those and weave them into this big ecosystem that we want for our employees? The other thing that we really wanted to focus on as a company is looking at our leaders and saying, well, how can our leaders be teachers? Because, okay, learning department, you're only so big. You've got thousands of employees. How do you reach all of them? And how do we utilize the skills of our leaders? So this was our strategy, was around this ecosystem. And after we designed the strategy, we had to start executing. So the first thing we did was we got learning champions from all around the world. So we had 250 champions globally. So if you're a global company, you need to extend your reach. That's a really important key because our headquarters are in Lincolnshire, outside of Chicago. And we have a lot of employees there, but we also have 61 offices around the world. So we reached these employees, and they were a big key to us executing on the strategy. No strategy is complete without an excellent marketing plan. And we have an amazing marketing group at Zebra. And we had a plan that we did with them, but we extended it. It's ongoing, never stops. We still meet with them on a very regular basis. And they're so amazing, they actually take executive messages and push the content through Degreed platform. So when you work really closely with your marketing team, you can extend your reach as well. And what that led us to is what we call the Zebra Education Network, or also known as ZEN, powered by Degreed. So that was the name of our platform. That is the name of our platform. And we did a contest around this for employees. So we also got employees engaged up front. We had more responses than they ever had with any contest at Zebra on naming the platform. So we did prizes and we did a lot of it. So all of this led us to the adoption place. That was our goal, 35% adoption after 6 months. We thought that was reasonable. 35% after 6 months was our original goal. We hit 35% on the first day. We were so excited. We couldn't even believe that happened. And right now, we're at 83% for anybody who's logged into the system. But on a regular basis, it's around 50 or 60%, so ongoing repeat use. But the idea is that once you have all of this in place, you can then start to focus on skills. Because we knew that we couldn't just right out of the gate say, everybody, rate yourself. But what happened, we were so surprised that Degreed gave us this slide after we started working with Degreed and said, hey, do you guys know that when you look at companies that are just like you in size, that your employees are rating themselves 20,000 times on average? I was like, what? Are you kidding? We were so shocked that our employees were more ready than we thought they were. That we also took this then to the next level, because how do the employees, what do they do with that once they put the information in the system? Because basically, it's the onboarding process, right? They're rating themselves as they go into the system. So we thought, okay, well, maybe it's just because people were being onboarded. But what we did is we looked at what employees do, or actually Harvard Business Review had done a study on skills, which I thought was interesting. They were really looking at why people stay in their jobs, and it translated to skills. So people say that they stay in their jobs because the work's enjoyable, because they get to use their strengths, and because they get to develop their skills, and they get new experiences. So we always have said, oh, we know employees leave because they have a bad manager. But we didn't know why they stayed. So I thought this was a really interesting study. But out of those three, who affects that more than the employee can say, yes, I want to use my strengths, but unless they have the right leader to help give them the work that means something to them, that's lost. So what we did is said, all right, we need to focus on our leaders. Our employees said so in the survey, but we also know now that this is what's going to keep our employees retained. So what we did with our people leaders is we said, let's invest in them. So we tried from an adoption standpoint, looking from the inside out in the middle layer of the company. So we developed a program with a lot of different skill development for our people leaders. And the thing that we really focus on in this class is not only building trust with their employees, how to be emotionally intelligent, but also how do they handle the career development of their employees? Because they weren't feeling like that was part of their responsibility, which is where that gap came from for us. So we walk through our performance management and career development, our IDP process, and now the managers get it. It's my responsibility to have conversations with my employees and bring out the best in them. So our managers are now building high-performing teams, and it's slowly working its way out into the company, because if you're like us, you have lots of people leaders. And so, but it's making a big difference in their lives, because not only are the managers getting more skills, because we're investing in them, but they now are in turn passing that along and finding that they have more balance or harmony in their life because they're more educated about how to handle themselves in their role. The second thing that we did from a skills perspective is that we looked at our businesses. And some of you I've been talking to, and this part is kind of overwhelming. How do you get all of your business functions to put in content? Do you say, oh, well, the learning organization is responsible for that? Well, you'd have to have a lot of people in the learning organization to manage all of the different functions that you have within your organization. So what we did was we set up a directory or a landing page. And from there, we have our role plans, and they're for each business. So an employee goes into the directory, they can click into their business, and then then this is an example of what it looks like from our legal department. So what we said, probably shouldn't have chosen legal now that I've got it up here. But what they've done is they put together the skills that they need in their company and their organization, because that is the struggle as a business. You say, okay, engineers, what do you need? Okay, finance, what do you need? You're always then constantly managing their requests or their changes, but if you ask them to own this, and we have some really strong leaders on the learning side in each business. So find who those people are and have them help you, and by putting the right subject matter experts within their business to manage this content. So that they're constantly developing content, but they're looking at skills, and some of those skills are our internal resources that they may be sharing already. The next thing we did was we looked at our employees and said, okay, how do we create an environment where our employees are empowered to create their own skill paths? It's in the platform, we know that, they get some instructions up front, but how do we give them more? Because sometimes it's overwhelming when you go into a new LXP and you say, wow, there's so much stuff. I guess I can do this. I don't know how this works, right? You're a lot of experimentation for an employee or an individual, and sometimes they don't have the time to do all that. So what we did for them was create a do-it-yourself learning directory. So they can come into this directory, they can look at how to create a skill plan, how to create a pathway, and then there's a way for them to publish that to their organization. So they basically send us a message through the platform to tell us what they need to publish and why, and it can be to their specific organization, or we can publish it to the whole company for them. So the idea then is now not only to empower the people leaders, but to empower the businesses and the business functions, but also the individual contributor. The other thing that we did, this is actually kind of funny because I had come up with this concept and I said, I want to empower people to learn. And people keep saying, I don't have time, I don't have time. So how do we fix that as an organization was a big question for us. So when we're doing the Leadership Essentials class, when we're doing our training, we've decided that the best way to get Empower Hour out to our masses is to push it out through our leaders. Because we looked at a corporate initiative and we were running into some roadblocks. And we said, you know, we've got a lot of things that are happening at different levels. It's easier if this happens organically, inside out again. And so now we're saying to our people leaders, give your team time to learn. Because they need permission in some cases, we're finding. It depends on the group, but a lot of people said, well, my manager wants me to get this done. I don't have time to spend 20 minutes doing a course or some content. But what we're teaching the managers is they have their team bring content to team meetings. So say they don't have a lot of time. Say it's in the crazy time of the year for them and they don't have a lot of bandwidth for learning. How can they empower their team to bring an article to their team meeting? Or maybe they all read it before they come to a meeting and share and discuss. Or they read a book together. If somebody goes to a conference, do they bring the learnings back to their organization? So there's lots of ways that managers are empowered to empower their employees to learn. We know that's not the end of skills. We still have some ways to go in connecting our job roles with skills, because what our employees want to know is, okay, I've got these skills. Now I've figured that part of it out, but what skills do I need to get to the next job? Where's the deficit? So if our next step is to take our roles and to publish them all with the skills that Zebra needs, right? So, Degree actually will provide some of that to you. Project managers need these skills, but what do Zebra project managers need? So that's what we have to do. So that's one of our next steps. And then the other part is looking at our company job library. So we have a library, and there's lots of jobs in that library. And so how do you take the skills for each level and each different type of function? So for example, if we've got engineers, there's at least 6 levels of engineers. Does the first level of engineer and entry level need the same skills as the top level, as what we call, I forgot what it's called, where they are an advisor? And so what we want to do there is map out the skills and attach it to our job library. So in other words, when you look at a job description, you can see very clearly what the skills are, because that is also a gap. When you look at, sometimes we, or our managers or just an organization will make a job description kind of generic around skills. We want to make that more specific, and we know that this takes effort and so a lot of collaboration with our HR business partners as well as our compensation team, because you have to look at all aspects of this. So now another question. Hopefully this is in your poll. You'll need to go back to, so now that you've heard about what we've done, I want to hear what is your biggest challenge in moving your organization forward. Is it, never mind, we don't know where to start, not enough buy-in at the top, our employees are not engaged, not sure what skills we need, is it A through D, or is it no challenge here? And so a lot of you are saying that you're not sure what skills you need and or all of the above. There's a couple of important notes on this. You have to have a strategy when you think about skills. That's number one. But number two, you need to look at your company culture and say, what works with our culture? Where are we at from a culture perspective that people will adopt skills? And that has to be one of your starting points, not only with your strategy, but how you infiltrate your organization with a skills mindset. I'm glad some of you have no challenge. That's awesome. So what looks like sunshine and rainbows was a lot of rain at times. So we know our jobs are hard, and we know that we come up against roadblocks or challenges along the way. And so what I want to talk to you about are some of the things that we've learned along the way that will hopefully help you. So this was around our strategy and around incorporating skills. I was actually going to call this lessons from the ledge, but I thought that was a little dark. So we'll just go with the edge. One of the things that was interesting when we first started our strategy was that it went to our executive leadership team. It wasn't presented by me, it was presented by someone else. And our ELT, what we call our executive leadership team, said no. And they came back to me and they said, no, Bethann, we're not going to do this. So I went to our chief administration officer and I said, do you have some time for me to spend with you on my vision for employee learning? And he was like, sure. So I sat down, have a conversation, walked him through it. He's like, oh, I'm in. Let's get with the CFO. So we got with the CFO. And he was like, oh, I'm in. This is awesome. Let's do this. So 2 things happened as a result. One, I had executive sponsorship right out of the gate. And they were also able to influence the rest of the executive team about the decision to invest in employee learning. Why I say don't take no for an answer is because if I had taken no, I wouldn't be standing here. And sometimes it's a hard no, and sometimes it's a soft no. So knowing the difference and being able to find a workaround or get someone else on your side is important. The other thing we did with our steering committee, we had a steering committee to start We had 20 people from all around the world, cross-functional, different businesses. And what we did was a face-to-face meeting with that group. The reason I'm telling you that is because when you meet a group of people face-to-face, it makes a huge difference in your progress. And sometimes we underestimate that. How many of you have global companies? Oh, wow. Okay, everyone. Excellent. When you've got a global company, you have to think outside your walls. And the best way to do that is to reach the people that are in those different regions. And so by bringing them into our headquarters, we collaborated for 2 days on a workshop on the entire ecosystem. Because when people weigh in, they buy in. So that group of people was really invested in what we were going to do, and they were bringing their teams along. A lot of them were people leaders. They were bringing their teams along. So the other part of that is that they also extended our reach with our champions. So those 250 champions I told you about, they were key initially, and they've been key to us all along. Same with our marketing team. The two of them, make them your best friends, if you possibly can. Because the champions, we are now introducing, when there's changes to the platform, we're doing anniversaries, so we're adding that to their charter to say, let's run anniversary parties and get our adoption up. So then the marketing team, we still continue to meet with them. They actually put out on Valentine's Day, without even telling us this is how great our marketing team is. I wish they were here to hear this. Because they went out and did, what do you love about learning? And they did this Z Reporter, and they go out in the street and they ask people what they love about learning. And they publish it on our internal website, which was pretty awesome because it wasn't even our idea. So once you have a great team working with you, they'll come up with ideas for you. The other thing from a holistic standpoint, so these were some of our gotchas. And that was looking at the entire ecosystem holistically, but how it connected. So we did some things that we wish we would have done differently from a connectivity standpoint on the entire ecosystem, because you have to take your on-the-job training and incorporate that with your online training. So we would have done that a little differently up front with the same system instead of, we had 2 separate systems for that. The other thing that we did was we did some how-to videos. And they were short videos. But we did a lot of things at one time. So we launched our on-the-job trainings, career mentoring program, shadowing. We had a growth and development website. We had a lot of things happening for our employees at one time. If we had had a full library of how-to short videos, it would have bought us a lot more upfront, less confusion, and more adoption even than what we had. The internal catalog part, if any of you are administrators in the system, I just want to mention this too because it got us in the beginning. We thought, well, we'll build out our internal catalog as we're going along, and we're building out some of our skills and our pathways. We'll just add things to the catalog. But what we didn't realize or think about was that when you don't have enough in your internal catalog, it goes to the outside, right? So if somebody is searching for time management and you have things that you want your employees to do, or you have a process around how to run meetings or things like that, if you don't add it to the internal catalog up front, it automatically goes external. So make sure you have enough content in your internal catalog. This goes without saying. You're like, oh, we'll just put a little Band-Aid on this over here. We'll figure that out later, which is what we did with our compliance. We said, oh, we'll just manually do a flat file in those and manage that. But what we ended up, what started out as a Band-Aid, when you pulled it off was a scar. So now we've got some more work to do around compliance. So again, thinking of this holistically and how do you integrate all of your learning together is really important. So we have some work to do there. But also when everyone goes away, like we had a big team of people helping us, and when the party's over, you have to think about how do we manage, how do we curate the content, what's our governance, our process. We had governance and process, but when you don't have the same team to help with all of that governance and process, you end up doing too much work yourself because you don't have the right resources behind you. So think heavily about when you open up a lot of content and courses to your employees, what is your governance process around managing all of that? The last thing about taking risks, take risks, big risks, small risks, calculated risks, but also think about user groups and get people's input along the way. So if you start talking to people, you'll get more ideas from them and do some pilot programs. experiment. There's lots of things that you can do, and sometimes the smallest thing can have the biggest payoff. So don't minimize a small movement ahead. So really, in summary, in order to shift to a skills mindset, you need to get buy-in from the top, and you need to ensure that learning is a priority in your company. So that's a number one around your strategy. But our approach focuses on the people, the business unit collaboration, individual contributors, and subject matter experts. The last one, it kind of goes without saying, you want to just think, there we go, skills, everybody's got them. And that's not how it works. It takes time. And it does take that experimentation. And there's a lot that you need to consider or try out, pilot programs, whatever you need to do to get a different mindset. Because changing your culture does require a change to a growth mindset when it comes to learning. Now we have time for questions. Yes? You did.
But I'd love to hear. Sorry, thank you. I'd love to hear more about your governance process because we are really in the throes of it. We think we have a really great plan. We went through a trial run last week, but it seems like we've made it very complex and extremely time-consuming. And I just wondered, any learning or takeaways that you had from that and ways to make that doable.
So can you elaborate on what you have done for governance?
Sure. So we have a very small but mighty team who is going to be manually governing what's coming in. So we've got reporting as to how many items. So we've set a benchmark. So if an item is shared with X amount of employees, it's funneling into reporting for us, and the request is to kind of line by line go through and review the items. It's a financial institution, so we have a lot of compliance and legal regulations that we have to be cautious around, especially with sales practices.
Okay.
But when you think about the actual logistical time that's going to take, it's not reasonable. I mean, I don't think it's longevity. I don't think it's something that we can sustain. Right. So I think it works for now, right, as we're launching and really just kind of getting into it. But long term, I think that's really where we're looking at how do we manage that to make it something that is, kind of crisis avoidable, right? So we don't want to fall into somebody bringing in sales practices that are completely against our culture or, our regulations, but also take away some of that manual. Click this link, read this article, read this book, watch this. Like, nobody has time to do hundreds of those.
Correct. So that's where I was talking about managing lots of content. So there's two thought processes on this. One is, do you govern and say, okay, you can't put content in unless it meets this criteria, or we have someone manually looking at the content that people are putting in. If you have a large organization, which I believe you do, the difference is, do you want to empower your employees or do you want to impede them? Meaning, if somebody puts content out and you say, nah, it's okay, maybe it's only certain topics for you that you want to do that with. Because I don't think it's reasonable to do that with all the content that anyone's pulling into the platform. Are they putting it on the internal catalog? Okay, right, well, you just launched. Okay, so that's something I would look at too. And maybe partner with each business function like we have would be a great way to help them govern their business. Because you can't know the ins and outs of every single business function in your organization. That's unrealistic. Did that help at all? Excellent. Chelsea, did you have thoughts? Okay.
I'd like to kind of tag along with what she was talking about. And it goes to another question that I had in terms of your champions, identifying the champions. Mm-hmm. We are not global, so okay. we've got, I'm thinking we've got it easy compared to you guys. But I struggle with engaging people to be champions. How did you identify them? How did you engage them? What were the parameters around which you got that commitment? And then to your point, about content, that's another thing, and we're still relatively new as well. Because my small learning and development team can't curate content and know whether it's good, because we do learning and development and they do, everybody else does what they do. So where do you get that commitment from
The champions.
the
So question number one.
champions to,
Okay.
to sort of vet the material that you're bringing in, and then how did you do that?
What bit? How? I don't know. So what business are you with?
Sorry?
Your company?
Tompkins Financial.
Financial, okay. So I think the thing about vetting content, I'm going to start there just because we're just on that subject. I think that you don't have to vet content, because if you think about everything that's out on the web, unless it's a specific process that goes against what your company's compliance is, that is where you're going to have that rub, and that's maybe where you look at the content that people are putting in. But if we found that if we hinder people and put too many rules around what they put into the platform or what they share, that they're not going to. And so to me, adoption and learning is more important than having constant control over everything. There's thousands of things in the platform, hundreds of thousands, right? In some cases, depending on who you're partnering with, you can't govern all of that. So that's my answer to the second half. The first half on the champions is we did advertisements around for people who wanted to be champions, and the people who were learning leaders in their organizations really stepped up. We did bribe them. I forgot that part. So that never hurts. So we did some really cool things with the champions. So we not only had lots of calls with them, and the other part about where we were at with Zebra, which helped us, is that we didn't have anything for employees. We had technical training and we had sales training. We didn't have anything for employee development. Our employees were so hungry for learning that they all wanted to be part of it, and we didn't really have to bribe them to join the party, but we kind of bribed them to stay. So we did some really cool swag for them, lunch boxes, I'm a learning champion, things they could hang up in their office, t-shirt. We shipped them around the world, these lunch boxes that had all kinds of fun stuff in them for them. And so the day we launched, everybody wore their shirts. Everybody, asked me a question kind of shirts, that they were a learning champion. So those kind of things really attracted our champions to the platform. They were also in the know. So sometimes knowledge is very motivating for people, meaning I'm on the in crowd, like I know what's happening for the company. This is new, this is big, nobody knows, except I do. And now I can share that. So that, I think, was really helpful to us. I think it's how you spin it and how you put it out to get their feedback. Yes, I'm not sure where we're going.
Yeah. Sorry, just a comment to wrap up this governance piece. Hi, this is Ekta Lalmittal. I'm from Colgate. We have been on this journey for a year and a half, and just from user-generated content perspective, I think what we have seen, we worry more. Mm-hmm. Employees worry at the same level because they're posting something on behalf of the organization. So it's a calculated risk to take. You will see after 6 months or so, you will see a lot of pieces shared, but it would not be against or anything which they might not feel is right for the organization. So just wanted to share that different perspective.
Thank you, that's perfect. Yes.
Hey, not quite wrapping up the governance conversation yet.
No, sorry, we're done.
But to follow up on Sarah's question, you mentioned are they adding it to the internal catalog? What are your permissions? Are you allowing people to add that to the internal catalog, or is that a process that you've got in place that your team does for them?
I'm looking at Chelsea because she runs the platform. I don't want to misspeak.
From those learning champions and from some of the learning leads from the business, we have a group that we call the system calls it, which is learning professionals. Mm-hmm. So this larger group, we actually took the people that were really, really good and made them learning professionals. And they're the ones that have the ability to add. Right now it's about 25 people who have the ability to add to our email catalog.
Otherwise, they have to actually send us an email from that process I was showing you before, where we did the directory. They can send us a note through there, and we can add it for them. So that's how we've managed that through Kreuzberg. Yes?
Can you say more about your how-to videos? You mentioned those. I'm curious to hear
So we have this amazing guy in our European office who's got this radio voice, and he's got all these technical skills that I clearly don't have. But he did a video explaining what he like talking on screen, right? Saying, "Here's what I'm going to show you how to do today," and then he would walk you through the system, and he would be clicking, and it would go back to him. So they're short, but they're quick about how do you load your skills, right? So there's just some base. So you have to break it down into bite-sized pieces because we know that the mind can only handle so much. And if I just want to know how to find my skills, that's all I want to know. I don't want to know everything else. So that's what we did. We broke it down into little pieces. But the videos were great because he actually walks you through the screen, and he talks and through part of it as well, meaning where you see his face and he'll go back and forth. He is actually, and in fact, if you Google Paul Norford, you probably would see him everywhere. He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. Yes. Okay, sir.
I absolutely love your recommendation about avoiding complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us something that we should totally avoid doing to really do that? Because it says avoid complexity and then /manual.
Right.
And, when we're launching and bringing people on board, there's a lot of things that can get quite complex, right? So can you say something like, do not go into that?
So give me an example of what you think is complex.
Yes. So we're a global organization as well. We have 5 regions. We have global networks, which are like across businesses type of experts. So when we want to bring everyone along, it gets quite complex, right? Like, who are we bringing? What are their permits? I know that you have been sharing a little bit on that, but and leaders, and you have one of the barriers, right? They want to absolute control everything, right? So it gets quite complex to really manage the expectations of everyone that wants to go into the platform, and also leaders. So it can get quite overwhelming, So I really love your tip, but can you go a little bit more specific on that?
So I'm not sure I understand your specific problem, so maybe I'll talk to you afterwards about that, or after the next session.
Yes. Thank you.
So so integrations were some of the things that we did. So we didn't do a full integration with our success factors, our LMS, and we didn't do a full integration with our compliance courses, which we outsourced to another company. And so what we do with those is we have to load them manually when people complete the content, and it's horrible. It's very frustrating because people complete a compliance course because it actually shows up in Degreed, but it takes a week to show up that it's completed, so employees get really frustrated. They're like, then now there's emails coming around, and now you've got to answer emails. And even though we put it in the system and said, hey, note that this will take a week, we still have some issues. So I would avoid that.